National Alliance for Children's Grief. 1 in 12 children in the U.S. will lose a parent or sibling by the time they turn 18.
And that can be tough for everyone in the family, but especially for young children, because experts say they process grief differently than adults. Joining us now is psychotherapist Dr. Robi Ludwig. Dr. Robi, thank you for joining us. So trying to explain losing a loved one to a young kid can be emotional and challenging. What should parents say?
Well, first of all, children do have an understanding of death that they either learn via cartoons, TV, sometimes with a pet. So there is an awareness, but of course, it's always different when it affects them personally. And so what parents need to do is understand the age and be direct. Explain that somebody has died. We don't want to use euphemisms and say, somebody is sleeping permanently, because that can scare the child. And there are so many resources for parents in terms of finding books that you can read with your child that helps the child understand death and how to honor people and give them permission to have their emotions.
Can I ask about kind of a side issue too? You know, we think about grief over death, but there's also divorce. There's also a family member moving away that could leave kids with that same feeling of losing someone. How do you deal with those?
That's such a great point, because we want to send the message to our children that with loss, it's understandable. They're going to have strong feelings, and invite them to feel comfortable talking to you or sharing their stories with you. Create a space with your child so that they know that you're there for them. And also sticking to routines is really important for kids, to know that routines help them gain their bearings, help them to feel safe, and explain that sometimes this change is the best for the entire family. And you can give explanations, present a unified front, especially when it comes to divorce.
And I want to circle back to something we referenced at the top, that young people experience grief differently. There's actually data on this. Mayo Clinic finds that grief is cyclical for children. They may grieve the loss actually multiple times through different developmental stages in life as they're deepening their understanding. So how can parents support their kids through that?
Well, you know, young kids sometimes don't understand even the permanency of death. They may not be able to conceptualize it. So to understand that about your child, if you believe in an afterlife, maybe there's a way also to share that people live within our hearts, and to try to keep the memory of those we love alive through creativity and through language and story. And you basically want to, be available for your child's questions and try to answer them as honestly as you can without overwhelming them with too much detail. Because sometimes we can be where our kids are at when we respond to the questions that they have.
Yeah, and the other thing, we actually went through this. We lost someone in our family when my kids were young. Everybody knows they bring things up when it comes to their mind, right? Is it okay to delay them and say, we're going to talk about this later while you kind of collect your thoughts or deal with your own emotions?
I think with kids, they express grief very differently. Sometimes it doesn't show, and sometimes they do have a need to discuss it. And as a parent, I think it makes sense to listen to your child and try to say what you can say and feel comfortable saying.
Dr. Robi Ludwig, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Really important advice. Thank you.
In today's Modern Parenting, according to the National Alliance for Children's Grief, 1 in 12 children in the U.S. will lose a parent or sibling by the time they turn 18.
And that can be tough for everyone in the family, but especially for young children, because experts say they process grief differently than adults. Joining us now is psychotherapist